Hey yo, this is Big Daddy Kane, and you're listening to another hot interview on The Library with Tim Einenkel on rapstation.com.
On January 6, 2017, my next guest released his fourth studio album, one day before his birthday. This Maryland MC has been killing it as an artist while mentoring the youth. His name is Substantial, and the new album is called The Past is Always Present in the Future. Substantial, welcome back to The Library with Tim Einenkel on rapstation.com.
Hey, thanks for having me, bro.
Name a better rapper from empty the dust. This spare time, Merkham low key with a spare rhyme. Old line, shoulda came up with an 09. No line, back in Suitland in the 90s. And someone else.
Cool, thank you for being here. So, as mentioned, this is your fourth album. How has the studio setting kind of creative process differ, or how's it been different on each of the albums? And then what has been this kind of the similar thing in creating each of these albums? Like studio setting, someone that might be with you at all times or something like that.
Each album definitely was recorded. The process was very different. The first album, I was signed to, Nujabes' Hideout production label. And so I had written most of the stuff while I was still in high school and some while in college, and recorded and wrote the rest of it while I was in Japan. And so that was probably one of the more unique situations. For the other albums, basically I had recorded all of those at my home studios, with the exception of maybe a few of the songs. But I was living in different places when I recorded each one of them. But I would say, of those last three albums, the one that I just put out is probably more unique in terms of, how I went about the process and gathering the production, where I kind of designated certain producers as responsible for a certain portion of the album, based on theme. But a lot of this was really just, just vibing out in my home studio with the music and laying down scat tracks, which is kind of my process. I come up with a topic and then lay down a scat track of me just kind of scatting over the music. I've been doing that process for a while, but this may be the first solo album where I actually use that process in the studio to record or to help write the lyrics and stuff, and develop the flows and patterns and stuff.
How do you know, I guess, which producer would do, works best with, purpose of the track, subject matter, what flow you want to be on that track? Is this just knowing their body of work really well? How'd you go through that process of knowing who's going to be perfect for what?
Yeah, so it was based on what the themes of the sections was. That's how I kind of decided who was going to produce what. So the first portion of the album, after the intro, which is produced by J Soul, the first portion, major portion of the album, which is The Past, is produced by the other guys, and they are the producers I have the longest history with. Isaiah from the other guys, who usually handles the rhymes and in the video work that they do. I've known him since we were 14. He was best man at my wedding. We got a lot of history together. And I met his cousin Joe, who handles most of the production later on when they formed a duo. Because of the history that I had with them, I thought who better to produce the past section of the project, because they go deepest into my personal past. And so then for the present, I had Marcus D produce that section, partly because of the fact that he presently he's the producer I collaborate with the most. So again, just thinking of what the theme of that section was, knowing his style of production and knowing what our current situation is, I was presently, he's the dude. So, and then for the future portion, I knew I wanted to kind of involve producers who sonically could do things that kind of work with that section. But more important than that was the whole idea that going into the future, I'd be working with these guys maybe a little more. So that's why I had Odyssey involved in that section. He also had something in the past section, but I had him involved in the future section for that reason. His drummer, John Lane, who is a part of his band Good Company, He produces 2 tracks in that section, and we've been talking a lot and collaborating more. And then Ginsu Dean, who ironically has a throwback sound, but that beat that he made, it made me think of like when you watch the Jetsons or something like that, where it's from a era. It's a bit of a throwback, but it deals with the future. So it's kind of, you know what I mean? Like I thought sonically that made sense. And then for the final section, that was produced by Algorithm. He did that entire section. And outside of my first album, which was done entirely by Nujabes and Mona Risic, outside of that album, Algorithm has always been a part of every solo album I've done. So I was like, you know, for the always section, which deals with legacy, let's have a guy who's always contributed to my solo albums. You know what I mean? You know, so that's how that process came about.
Overall for you, what was your kind of, just before we go into some tracks of the album, what was your, I guess, your overall goal of this album?
With the title being The Past is Always Present in the Future, the album really deals with legacy and us not forgetting like our roots, no matter like, you know, how badly people want to kind of separate themselves from the path that we had to travel to get to where we are or get where we're going. The reality of it is there are portions of our past, and all of it to a certain extent, that will still kind of live on as we move forward. And so I knew that I wanted to make music that really spoke to that and captured those moments and really, you know, in a way kind of spoke to what my legacy as an individual would be, but then also what I hope that the legacy of our people would be as well. And so I, you know, as far as how, like, you know, how I feel about in terms of me being able to capture that, I think overall, man, when I finally stepped back and listened to everything, when everything was done, because it was about a two and a half year process, you know, I definitely feel as though it conveys that. I mean, that's been the response kind of speaks to that as well, like in terms of people really seeing the whole full circle, like kind of happen right in front of them. So that's why the album cover as well has that feel reminiscent of my first album, because I really feel like for me, it's, you know, my career coming full circle.
The first track, Exposition, it's, you know, the first and only verse on the, you know, on this track is for me it's not just like a lyrical wake-up call for the listener, but also a social commentary wake-up call. I mean, you talk about racial systematic oppression, hypocrisy of those that tell you to let the impact of slavery, police brutality, and education injustice go, and you talk about a lot more. Why did you decide that this would be the first track of the album, and then why only one verse?
I knew that it would be extremely important to kind of set a certain tone early on, you know, just to kind of give people a general idea of what the feel of this album was going to be, especially with the title being what it was, and this project being a bit of an expo, you know what I mean? And being an exposition where it's like, you know, I'm going to showcase different things in terms of our history. I'm going to showcase my lyrical ability while I give you this substance. But more important than all of these things, you know, I'm going to achieve this while still giving you good music that you can just kind of vibe to, get lost in, while receiving these messages and themes that are extremely important, you know. And so why one verse? I would just say that I feel like a lot can be achieved without kind of overdoing it sometimes. I didn't want to make it this 3-verse thing. I know it's the opening song. I really love the music that J Soul came up with. So I wanted to kind of start out in a way where it's like this music's playing, it kind of sucks you in. You know, the singing that I put in there, that I laid down, I wanted to be somewhat haunting and reminiscent of, like, you know, some of those like Parliament and like Funkadelic tracks that are kind of like not the typical songs you get from Parliament and stuff, like those deep cuts that or that they had that were very like, you know, when I think of like Maggot Brain and things like that, that were just, it wasn't what you kind of come to expect from them. And so this, I think people expect substance from me. However, I didn't, I knew that track was kind of going to be like the unexpected, even to my base, you know what I mean? And so I figured that was a great way to kind of set the album off, you know?
Remember, I am a true descendant of people who were stolen and traded for all the riches. But I can play the victim, I'm told just to forget it, while they dwell on 9/11 and celebrate independence. But I'm supposed to clear the memory of all the lynching. Shit, I cringe at the thought of giving my daughter whippets. Plus I see the name that on my family every time I write a check. So how the fuck am I supposed to forget when we ain't safe in churches, or even when we comply? The ones paid to protect us are making sure that we die. They say we kill ourselves, we still cheat and we rob, but some of y'all do the same when you supposed to be on the job. And if you really care about the welfare of my people, you make sure that the schools for all children were equal. Fair competition, so they had to quit the game. Scared if we catch up, then we do they ask the same.
In terms of writing that, is that something that's a challenge for you as an artist to kind of say so much, but you know, in one verse? I mean, how do you prepare yourself for accomplishing that goal?
You know, what's important is knowing ahead of time exactly what you wish to accomplish in terms of like what you want to cover, what themes you want to cover, because it's a loose verse, so to speak, where it's like I don't focus on one particular topic. And you know, and then it's also based on what we kind of see in the commentary and stuff, you know, like I think that, you know, naive people sometimes believe that if we can fix this one problem here, you know what I mean, things overall, it'll fix the world, you know what I mean? And, you know, what I really wanted to illustrate that, no, there's not this one problem. There's a lot of different problems, right? And I don't want you to just kind of fix this one problem and think that if you help us fix this one problem, somehow like life for Black people just instantly becomes the best thing ever. You know what I'm saying? And so I wanted to kind of bring up, you know, I specifically wanted to target certain issues that I feel like, you know, that as a Black person in this country, in the world, you kind of can't escape these things, you know? You know, like there's no quick fix for these problems, especially, you know, when you're dealing with, you know, people who refuse to even acknowledge some of these things as a problem, you know? And so, yeah, man, it was definitely a challenge, but I mean, you know, I took my time writing that verse. I spent a very long time writing that opening track, and scrapped like other things I had and other ideas I had. And then when I finally got this last direction that I wanted to go in, that finally happened very quickly. You know, when I think finding your direction is just like an actor, you know what I mean? Where you're kind of trying to figure out which way you want to go with the role you're trying to play. And until you figure that out, it's kind of like, it's a struggle. And I think I finally figured it out. And once that moment happened, like that verse just wrote itself, you know?
The second track in the album, Made in Maryland, you kind of talk about the importance of your home state, what Maryland has to offer, and kind of why it's important for you to keep coming back to your community, your Maryland community. You've obviously toured. You're an artist that, you know, you teach youth, but you also tour. How do you keep yourself grounded while you're on tour? Yeah,
I mean, I think the reality of it is, I mean, for any artist, right? There's a Bible quote. I'm not a religious person, so to speak, but you know, there are a couple verses that stuck with me, you know, and there's one, and I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit, but it's like it says, a prophet is only without honor save in his own home. And because of their great disbelief, and because of their disbelief, he did not great works there. And like that was shared with me by a pastor many years ago, and it stuck with me. And it was because, and the irony of him sharing it with me was I was just venting. I wouldn't say it's ironic, but the timing was crazy. Like, he just had that just kind of, and he just hit me with it after venting to him. I just came off a tour, and he was asking me how the tour went, and I was like, man, it was amazing. But it's always kind of interesting when I come back home because, you know, for me, because I dived back into, like, the community, like I grew up in, and also, you know, and connect with people who were still very much in it, still very, very much trying to find a way and figure out how to make it through their day to day. And, like, instantly, you know, you kind of you just bounce back to reality, and it's just like, you know, the stuff that I know those moments are significant for a lot of artists and very much for the fans as well. But I am reminded from the moment I set foot back into my home how, although those things can be extremely inspiring for some, the reality of it is, I think sometimes we give it too much importance. You know, like, these things are somehow make me better than these other people that I come across. And I'm constantly reminded when I'm amongst them that, yo, like, we're the same. We're the same. I just was afforded some opportunities that you may even come across at some point in time, but the difference is that I just took them, right? And I made the most with the opportunities that I was presented. But I also understand that there are certain fears that come up with growing up in an environment like the one I grew up in, that these kids that I work with are still very much in, that hinder us from taking these opportunities. You know, and those are real fears. Those are real fears that aren't addressed, and these kids aren't always exposed to as many opportunities or just as much information as some people. And so it's important that when, like, the touring is cool, but I think the story behind how I got there and what I was able to take from it is what I kind of use to motivate others, and also kind of kill some of those fears, or those real fears that people have, you know, like, yo, you just gotta sometimes take that leap of faith and believe in yourself.
I'm a PG king, it's a PG thing. This for Godzilla, OGC King, Joe D, Steph Hive, and my Baltimore team. That's my man J Soul and the young homie Green. Damn, my friends are dope, yeah, we really rap. Fans been losing hope, I'ma bring it back. Stan has been dope since Pitty Pat, kick, ball, jump, rope, and high.
You talked about the kids you work with and kind of seeing the obstacles that are happening there, you know, with them, and how you try to work with them and, you know, get them over those obstacles. And there's a few things I want to talk about. 2 tracks, No Turning Back 2.0, and Wish You Were Here. But before that, I want to talk about the MLK Big Dream 2.0.
No matter what abuses it may bring, I'm gonna tell the truth.
Stateside on MLK line, and we low when the whip look like the ones ride. Stateside on MLK.
Because what you do there is that what I thought was interesting is you play excerpts from Dr. King on, you know, why he opposed the Vietnam War and how war was damaging to those at home, versus, let's say, you know, play speeches from his I Have a Dream speech or something, you know, excerpts from I Have a Dream speech, or just stuff that's in, I guess, popular stuff in the mainstream. Why did you choose to play those excerpts in the track? But then also, how does that relate to, and the song itself, how does it relate to what's happening in the community of Maryland and what you see when you work with the youth?
I start with that first quote from Dr. King because I think sometimes people are afraid to speak their truth, or just, you know, the truth in general, because of the consequences that come with it. You know, there are artists that are very much afraid of making songs about certain things, because the reality of it is they fear that people won't be as interested in them and their music, their art, if they go this route and kind of speak about who they really are, as opposed to these things that are just associated with rap music, you know what I mean? But then there's also just kind of outside of music, just what we deal with in our day to day. You go into a job that you may not love, and communicating with different people and kind of wearing this mask and hiding behind this kind of caricature of yourself. You know what I mean? Because ultimately, I think we all fear, or some people, you know what I mean? Some people will flat out tell you, yeah, they're scared of that. Other people will deny that they have any fear of exposing who they really are. But I think all of us have a little bit of fear of exposing everything about ourselves, because we're afraid of being judged by those who we, you know, by our coworkers, by our family, by the world. And so it's a challenge. You know, I try to make very honest music while still putting some things where, you know, it might be a little bit based off of fiction, but it's like kind of fact and fiction kind of meeting in the middle somewhere to tell a certain story in certain cases. And so with the second quote, dealing with war,
is doing a great deal to destroy the lives of thousands and thousands of my brothers and sisters. We are dying physically, and the other thing is that we are dying spiritually and psychologically in disproportionate numbers at home in the ghettos. And I think the war itself accounts for our constant spiritual and psychological death here at home.
I always find it interesting that, you know, people are so like gun-ho about, like, you know, supporting the troops and how, you know, like we need to honor them and we need to do this, that, and the third, where, like, you know, it's just funny when I think about how, like, we go so hard for them, like when they're going to war, but the reality of it is, like, you know, the results when they come home, right? Because wealthy people aren't sending their kids to the military, right? These, you know, people who have means, you know, like some of the same folks who kind of get on stage and tell you how it's unpatriotic to kind of speak against these things. Those people oftentimes aren't serving themselves and definitely aren't sending their children to do so. And so those same people they're trying to get you to support oftentimes come home and they're forgotten. And oftentimes, you know, they're members of a disenfranchised group of people, or you know, just the lower class. Period. You know, the people who are just kind of, they're doing this not because, not always or 100% because of the fact that, you know, they want to fight for their country, but also because, I need a job and I can't get anything else. And so, so I think, you know, war and being a part of the military and stuff like that, and all these things have these consequences that you know, that some people just kind of turn a blind eye to, and you know, it's like, it's just funny to me where people are always trying to get you to support something when they themselves don't support them after the work has been done. And they're just forgotten. I mean, okay, you know, there's some benefits. You get free food, you know what I'm saying, at some of your favorite restaurants on some days, and maybe you get to check out a football game and this, that, and the third, but you can't get quality health care. You know what I'm saying? When you're probably going to, that's probably far more important than anything else after what you've seen and the effects that it has on you mentally and the physical trauma that has happened to you as well. That's arguably the most important thing, like, you know, along with job security, the whole reason why some of them went into it to begin with. You know, it's just, it's funny to me, man. It's laughable. It's extremely sad as well, you know? And so those were quotes that we don't necessarily hear from him that maybe should be thrown in the mix, because, you know, people love to kind of paint MLK how they want to paint him. And love to kind of throw them up in the mix when we're talking about, you know, the issue of the day, and kind of using him as a way to get people to pacify their anger. And you know, I just wanted to kind of painted in a different light.
You're an artist that is, you cover, and obviously with your lyrics, you cover an array of subjects, and you kind of talked about it earlier about getting an artist that you also you get personal in your music.
Right.
And you do that on this album with, I think two of my favorite tracks are No Turning Back 2.0 and Wish You Were Here.
Mm-hmm.
They're both just like extremely personal songs. Wish You Were Here is about, is a heartfelt track about your late father. And
Peace, Pop, still missing you. Want you here, but I'm in no rush to visit you. I've been doing my best with this hand that life dealt. Mama held it down, and that money you left helped. I give it all back just so I can chill with you. Get some guidance in these troubled times. Would I love to build with you. Family, friends passed on. I hope they're there with you. Some good ones came along.
And No Turning Back is also an extremely personal song.
In my rear view, fast living and fast women that I went through, like underwear and dirty linens. I get hit to the ways of a player, wanna be pimping, breaking curfews and heart splitting like politicians. I know, so cold. Talk to never love them, yet we act like hoes. See, I chose.
Can you just, for No Turning Back, can you tell the listener who this is about and kind of the writing process that went into creating this song?
So I knew that in the first two verses, it's a whole lot of, reflection happening, where it's, I'm thinking about like the man I was versus who I am now, and just trying to come into grips with the fact that there are some people out there who prefer old you versus new you, and are you willing to kind of conform to make people happy, or really just kind of grow into the person you're meant to be? And I thought that ending the song with talking about my relationship with Nujabes, and then also people who are fans of myself and Nujabes and who prefer our work together. I felt like that was the perfect thing to kind of wrap up that song, because I get asked all these questions when I do interviews and when I travel about what it was like to work with him, and how come maybe we didn't do more of this or more of that, blah blah blah, so on and so forth. And are you going to release these songs that you guys never released? And I mean, it's a lot to. It's hard. It's already hard to lose people you care about. But it's really tough when you lose like an amazing artist who was also like who's somebody you considered a friend and work with, because it's like you're trying, like you try to heal, right, and you come to grips with the reality of the situation that that like, I mean, what you and this person have done together and may have planned to do more, that's not going to happen now. So, but you kind of never really fully get past that, because there are people who love what y'all did, who constantly want more of that. And sometimes they don't think about, I guess, the cost of what it is they're asking. And so, I mean, I could be a guy who, contacts his family and his record label that he ran and spend a large amount of my budget and grab up every old beat that he has and then put together an album over that and give it to folks. And there are a large amount of people who'd be very happy with it. Even if it wasn't my best work, they'd just be happy to have it. And then I could just release all of the old stuff that I have with this guy, and probably make way more money without having to work so hard. And websites that have covered me so many times that choose not to cover me now would all of a sudden give a damn and cover me. You know what I'm saying? I could play that game. I know I could play that game and probably make way more money, probably tour more and stuff like that. I just choose not to. I really, and I think it was important for me to kind of address that in that song. So people could really, instead of debating back and forth online about how I feel or what they thought Nujabes intended, I spelled it out for folks. Like, this is what it is, like you can sit up here and try to guess all you want what you think, I'm thinking, but let me go ahead and just make it clear. You know, and I mean, a lot of people loved the verse, respected the song and where I was coming from. And there's some people, like some fans, that took issue with what I said because they felt like it was an attack on them. And it wasn't. It was just really just trying to check certain people. Like, look, man, like, you know, just kind of, I need you to understand what it is you're asking. And I need you to understand that, like, I know that you may be not a real fan of mine to begin with. You just love the dude I work with, and I just happen to work with him. But I'm not going to play that game with you. You know what I mean? And so, you know, more power to anybody who, I mean, to everyone that loves the brother, you know what I mean? Because, you know, I cared about him too. But, you know, what I care about honoring his legacy more than I do off of profiting off of his legacy. And I think the best way to honor that is to not try to, you know, play this game of giving people all of this, just more material that isn't authentic because, you know, solely because he's not here. He can't approve these tracks. He can't say, yeah, man, I love this, man, let's put it out. Because our process was never that easy. It was a damn fight every time we went in the studio. And so, you know, he was the hardest, he was the most difficult guy I worked with. And the songs wouldn't, if I took his beats and just put it out like that, it wouldn't be the actual process that people that made, you know, it wouldn't be the process that made those songs that people love. And so I'm not going to shortchange the people.
Since your so-called fans think my solo work is trivial unless it's me and you, but where's the honor in that? When most of it was subpar or we thought it was whack, they'd probably be overjoyed if I bought a few tracks you didn't finish and distribute them all over the map. That's what they're hoping, but I'll never fuck you over like that. I'll forever honor your memory, but there's no turning back, you know?
As far as Wish You Were Here, really with that, man, I just wanted to do something to honor my dad's memory, you know, that was honest about, you know, he wasn't this perfect man, which I kind of state on the Subway as well, like where I talk about like my mom and why she ultimately, her and my dad split. He wasn't perfect, but like it's more so wishing he was here just to kind of see the progress our family has made. You know, the whole idea that my daughter will never get to meet her grandfather, you know what I mean? That's a tough pill to swallow, especially when, you know, this is a kid who has lots of questions about the man he was. And the fact that, he never got to meet my wife. Like, he died when I was 10. So there's so many accomplishments I've had in my life and so many achievements and just things that, truthfully, I just didn't think I was going to live to even see for myself. And that, you know, you want the people who had something to do with you being here to be a part of that, man, and be able to kind of take pride in that. I'm just lucky that my mom has lived as long as she has, because, you know, I'm no spring chicken. You know what I mean?
Hey, we're the same age. Come on.
Right. Well, you know, we're virtually dinosaurs in this business at this point, you know?
Right.
You know what I mean? But I'm just, you know, man, I'm honored. I'm happy. I'm super happy that my mom has been able to kind of see all of this. But I'd be lying to say that I don't think about my dad a lot and how I wish he could have seen like half of the stuff I've done. And, you know, especially knowing too that, like, man, he wasn't the most supportive dude either, man. Like, I mean, this is a guy, I mean, I went to art school and everything, and this is a guy that told me I couldn't draw. So, you know, like, you know what I mean? That was, you know, that's some traumatizing stuff to tell a kid where this is the thing that you've decided you're most passionate about, because this is before the music. And so a lot of what I accomplished in my life was me doing stuff in spite of what I was told. Same thing with the music, man. Like, you know, I wasn't getting all of the support in the world when I first started out. So really just my work ethic comes from me constantly trying to prove to people that I'm doper than you think. I can make great art, man, that like not just people dig and think it's dope or whatever, that might inspire somebody to do something great in this world, you know? So, yeah, man.
I miss you so much.
Speaking of it, I mean, the Subway, produced by Marcus D. For me, had two meanings, I imagine. Subway as in trains and transportation, but then subspace way as it's spelled out. It kind of seems like it was in which it's the quote unquote substantial way of doing things. Can you talk about the role that the New York City subway system but also the Metro, DC Metro system has played in your personal life, but also as your life as an artist? And for listeners, what is the substantial way?
The trains, man, they like that subway system, both in New York and the DMV, connected you to so much. Like, when you go to like very poor neighborhoods, like people who struggle, you know what I mean? Just kind of you realize that they are limited in certain experiences. Not all, but they are limited in certain things. And so I remember I didn't, like, in the DMV, I hadn't gone to Georgetown until I was like damn near 21, I think. You know what I mean? I think I was like in my early 20s the first time I went to Georgetown. So I didn't realize that places that nice that weren't government buildings existed in D.C. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't know about that neighborhood. I had heard about it. I knew about the college only because of the basketball team. But I had never been myself until, like, I'd lived 20 plus years before I'd been to this place to see that, like, damn, this is kind of nice. Oh, this is how folks live over here. You know what I'm saying? And I realized the same thing when I was living in New York. Like, when I was working with kids in Brooklyn, like in Brownsville and Bed-Stuy, and I'd be talking to these kids and realize that, some of them hadn't even been to, like, Manhattan. You know what I mean? Like, for real. Like, barely been outside of their area in Brooklyn. Like, seriously. And I thought about that as an outsider, as someone who lived in Brooklyn for 10 years, where, like, I was like, damn, man, I've been all around this city, like, all over the place. Like, I came here with the passion to make sure I got the most out of living in this city. I've, like, been to every borough, like, performed in every borough, met, like, different cultures, went to the whole, hung out in Chinatown, went to the deep parts of Chinatown where you actually feel like you're in China. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, at some point you stop hearing English and stop seeing signs in English. You know what I mean? I've done that. I've gone out like Jackson Heights and went to, like, certain restaurants and kind of was having that whole, like, experience of, like, feeling a little closer to the Middle East and Southern Asia, you know what I mean? By, like, being in these communities. And I realized how connected that system that allowed me to get around and go to these places, that freedom to connect with all of these different cultures, man, and to kind of get out and learn about, other folks, and just feel more connected. And I think that, the subway, in a sense, the path is really about, like, the path that I've taken to kind of get where I am. And I couldn't get where I am without that ability to kind of reach out and connect with these different people, these different cultures. Like, I couldn't have grown into the man that I am without the ability to do that and the freedom to do that. And so, so that's what that song, is really about for me. And acknowledging the fact that I'm sharing my story with you, but it's not so that you can go out here and try to take the same path I took. It's just like, this is just how I got here. Because you meet people who always want to know how you got to where you are. And I'm like, look, here's my path. You know what I mean? Now, there are certain things from my path that you can clearly and obviously take for yourself, but just recognize the fact that our paths are not going to be identical,
A black of all trades, you spit. This is for the chance takers.
Villains gave us lemons, now we lemonade makers. Don't let any man break ya. The most resilient y'all seen.
Who is this track written for?
So Black of All Trades is very much a track that is for people like myself who met obstacles along the way and and people who told you weren't going to be able to do certain things. You're not going to be able to do this. You can't be good at more than one thing. You're going to have to pick this one thing and do that. And, and don't pick the wrong thing because, you looking the way you do and you being from where you're from, you're definitely not going to be able to do that thing. And you're sure as hell not going to be able to do more than one thing. So it's really for the people who fought through that. And the longer I live, the more people I meet who understand what that feels like, man. Like, this whole, you just happen to have something, you're lucky to have something you're passionate about, and you're super lucky if you got a few things you're passionate about. But you still have these obstacles of getting through that day-to-day, those day-to-day challenges and those naysayers and and then real systemic issues or whatever that are put in place to make sure people like you don't accomplish, a fraction of what it is you're dreaming to accomplish. And, it's for people like that, man.
On No Better Time, I'm trying not to destroy your words. You spit 50 minutes of fame, eternally forgotten, or try to live forever are your options. Is this advice that? So I read this. I automatically thought, okay, this is advice for, those one-hit wonder artists that are, trying to just, be the, one hit and they're out, right?
Right.
Is this advice for them, or is this advice that you could give anybody in any path they choose in their life? Yeah,
absolutely. I think. I'm never really just talking to rappers, you know what I mean? If ever really, I might make references to different things, but the reality of it is that's a real choice I think we all have. Like if you're a person who is coming from a situation that may not financially be the best, you're trying to get out of that situation, but then you have some choices. Like, do I want a quick solution? Do I want to kind of be this person that is that makes it really fast because, I feel like my situation is the worst thing ever. So I want to blow up tomorrow. You know what I mean? But we see it all the time where these people who do that, they go away as quickly as they got here. Or do I want to be this person that, do I want to be this person that never achieves anything and is just completely forgotten? It's like I almost was never here. Or do I want to be this person that may not have been the most successful person. I may not have been the wealthiest person. However, what I accomplished while I was here is going to outlive me. It's going to outlive me and potentially, live on forever. Like different things that I've done may inspire people for generations to come and live forever. And those are real choices that people have the power to make, that I don't think they realize they even have those choices. A lot of folks are just kind of letting life happen. You know what I mean?
You in your dreams at night, but you could have had, should have did, would have got on. But the fat lady center stays singing that song, cause you don't know what you got till it's gone. Can't miss what you ain't had all along. What better time than the present? The present's better than time, even if you only shine for a second. 15 minutes of fame, eternally forgotten, or try to live forever are the options. You waiting on me, you waiting on him. Waiting on her, you waiting on them, waiting on the miracle to fall out.
Are you when you talk on subject like this? Do you see yourself? Is this you giving advice to the younger generation, or is it not a generational thing? It's just it's whoever you've crossed your path.
It's everybody, because I've done shows where, I've had fans who were 13 or 15 years old in the crowd who were literally there with their parents who were a little bit older than me. And, and I have those conversations where the kids are looking at you one way and drawing inspiration from certain things. And then having a conversation with the parent and it's when I drop my kids off to school and I leave it in, you know what I mean? I leave the music on and keep listening even when they're gone, because it speaks to me. I think that inspiration in its purest form can inspire anyone. It doesn't like you may even target a specific group of people, but the people you may not have intended to inspire can still draw inspiration from it. And so while I think I shouldn't have to, and even on this song, it's not necessarily targeting people of color per se, but I don't think I need to not talk about my blackness and what my experience is as a black man, so that way I can inspire everyone. I think I can still target a specific group of people or person. Like I can talk about, just like how I can tell a story about one particular thing, and it might inspire thoughts or inspire people who didn't even have that experience, but it might just make them look at things differently. So I think you can still target people and be inclusive. You know what I mean? Like, because if I didn't want to help everyone, I would literally, write that song. Like I'd write the song like Black of All Trades, and then make sure I only shared it with black people. You know what I'm saying? But I think there are ideas that come in with songs like No Better Time, or anything where it might sound like I'm talking to one group, but it can potentially inspire like so many more than just who it sounds like it's for. So, hey man, look, I'm just trying to improve our current situation to the best of my ability. And it's like, and I really don't give a damn how old or young you are, how, whatever. As long as at the end of the day you hear it and you want to make this situation for everybody better than it currently is, because that's the only way we'll truly move forward and be able to make this world better than it currently is.
In the track "My Daughter's Eyes," you talk about the struggle of being a woman, and you pretty much created a song that is also a track to empower women.
It's a man's world all about, cause she cool but she not. Ladies first only when she put it by. Wanted to take orders, never see her as a soldier. Hold up, let me stop acting like I'm not him. Like I never womanize or undermine it. Want her how I want her, where I want her, when I wanted her. In a home she made, being treated like a foreigner. Taught she only valuable if she got, and if she can have a baby boy by.
What has been the reaction to this song, and kind of what has inspired you to write? What inspired you to write this actual track?
The response has been great. I've had a lot of sisters say different things to me and thanking me for even taking the time and mustering up the courage to write something like this, because I'm as guilty as like any of the men that I mentioned in the song, for contributing to a world that hasn't been the most difficult, the easiest to traverse for women. So, but what inspired it ultimately was a film that my wife was watching initially, and then even though I was in the studio, she was really pushing me to, hey, you might want to come in here and watch this with me. You really need to see this. And the film was called The Mask You Live In, and I happened to stop to watch the film while I was literally writing that song. And so I came back into the studio. I stopped the music, and I basically decided to kind of, I had some great conversation with my wife, obviously. But then I started to do some research on my own, like just kind of read various articles with like women kind of just going over like various issues of today and the past, and then just conversations with different people I know, from coworkers to my sisters to whoever that, and also men as well, man, just kind of talking about, some of the different things that we see that we actually try to do something about, and plenty of the stuff that we see and we know is an issue, but don't really put forth any effort to putting an end to certain things. And so I wanted to touch on something that I really felt like you don't hear like rap, you don't hear in rap music. You don't hear it in music in general. You know what I mean? At least not music that men are making. And so, I mean, it's not to say I've done something that I think no artist has done, because I've heard some things that are not too far removed from it. Some I heard after, and things I can think of from before. But I wanted to do it in a way I hadn't heard it done before. That that wasn't about like getting praise from women as much as it was opening up dialogue with dudes, like to really get us to kind of look at ourselves and recognize that, like, yo, we're doing harm to ourselves by harming our women, by making this world less pleasant for them. It doesn't make things better for us. And I think that concept like spills over into racism as well. Like, you don't make this world better, like as a whole, by oppressing another group of people. Because now, like, think about how much you've missed, how much progress, like, we've potentially missed in, like, be it architecture, engineering, art, quality of life, all of this, by oppressing a certain group of people who could have brought their genius to the table, you know what I mean, to do such great things. Because, I mean, think about what has come about. Like, look at the things that were created and have been developed. Like, this is us shifting gears a little bit, going, focusing more on people, on race now, as opposed to the issue with just women. But think about the things that have been created in conditions, in piss poor conditions, or like from people who had like next to no resources, that ultimately created these things, that made our world function better. And imagine what they could have done had they had more opportunity and more resources. You understand? So, and how far along we'd truly be had these things not happen. And then some could argue too that, and this struggle is part of what created some of these things that we came up with. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you can't invent something without first having a problem. So, I mean, there's that side to it too. But I truly believe that we could be like a lot further along as a world, or as a people, like if we kind of get off this idea, get off this way of thinking that I can't be successful if this group of people are getting the same opportunities as me. Like if somehow, like, us taking away some of the things, by paying women more, like, you still can't, like, be successful and get a good paying job. Like, that's stupid. You know what I mean? And that only makes sense if you're just a lazy person who refuses to kind of do what needs to get done to put yourself in a certain position. Yeah, basically, it sounds like a person who's afraid of competition. You know what I mean? And I think that speaks more to the lack of real character and ability and confidence in what a group of people can do, as opposed to like being a real, like this real thing. I feel like I mean, you get what I'm saying. I drag it out too long, but yeah.
We've spoken about some of the lyrics on the tracks of this album. But when you go to each page with lyrics, each lyric page on the your Bandcamp page, there are quotes at the beginning, at the top of the lyrics. You quote James Baldwin, Tubman, Goldie Hawn, Chris Rock, Big Daddy Kane, Sonia Parker, just to name a few. Turning back to your writing process, do the quotes inspire the mission of the track, or kind of does, when the track's completed, does that inspire what quote is you lead into the lyrics with?
In most cases, the quotes were kind of like found after, and like I'd be like, for instance, I was at the museum, the African American Museum here in DC. That song had already been written, but then I see this quote on the wall. I was like, man, that is like the perfect way to sum up what this song is about. You know what I mean? And so in a lot of cases, that's what the quotes are. They're kind of like a sum, like just a quick summary of what this song really is about. In some cases, like a song like "Follow the Master," where Big Daddy Kane, his line, "I work like a slave to become a master," and that quote, that idea, is very much at the core of the inspiration of that song, you know, where it might seem like a very surface level song in terms of the other content on the record. But really what that song is about is for the vocal part of this hip hop world, right? Our MCs, our rappers, our lyricists and all of that. Getting back to, it's not that we can't kind of evolve, right? I'm all for evolution. However, I think there are certain core values, there are certain core things that, like how this thing developed, that are important for MCs, rappers, and whatever folks are calling themselves nowadays, to maintain those certain qualities, like to make sure that those things are still present and ready to go at the drop of a hat, if you're going to come into this world. And so, and that stuff all requires like people to do work, people to do research, people to develop themselves, to constantly to develop themselves, and never really feel like, because I think even if you master something, you can still learn. You know what I mean? So it's not to say like, yo, I'm a master of this and there's nothing else for me to learn. Like, nah, I've mastered this particular thing, but there are certain sides of it that I still can improve on. And so, and that's where, you know, why I love, that's what from a quote that's so simple, I work like a slave to become a master, from Big Daddy Kane. That's my, like, when I hear that, that's my takeaway, you know? And so that song in particular is really like for those artists or whatever, just to kind of push them to like, yo, this is what this is meant to be. And these are some things that I like that will forever hold true. And I think all of us should be working toward. And so all of those different quotes connect to those songs, in a similar fashion. Songs like PTXD, where the quote for that one, I just happened to be watching Arsenio Hall, like when he had his reboot and it came back, and I was watching the LL Cool J interview, and he just says that, man, and I'm just like, oh my God, like that quote was so powerful, man. You know, don't let your past hold your future hostage. It's just like, oh my God. You know what I mean? And I knew when I heard that quote, I was like, it hit me so hard in that moment. I was like, man, I'm going to find a way to use that quote for something at some point in time, be it music or art, something. And so when I wrote PTXD, I was like, man, I wrote it in there. It was like, don't let your past hold your future hostage. That's the LL, not me, you know? And, you know, I mean, we constantly see that happen to us. Like, it's important for us to remember our past, but our past doesn't have to control every aspect of our future, you know?
Is that quote, or is, I guess the Big Daddy Kane quote, is that kind of the two quotes that you that have stuck with you the most since the completion of this album? Or is there like a different quote that you kind of just always fall back to?
Yeah, I mean, the James Baldwin quote is probably the one that stuck with me the most. That's why, like, the photograph that I took of the quote, that's why I put it in the album cover, you know, because I feel like it's kind of his quote is a longer way of stating like what I'm pretty much stating in the intro. Well, no, pardon me. His quote is like a longer way of stating what the title of the album is pretty much saying. He's saying it with much more detail and way more eloquently because it's James Baldwin. You know, he's the man. So, you know.
The new album is The Past is Always Present in the Future. The artist, of course, is Substantial. You can check him out on Twitter at I am Substantial. Substantial, thank you so much for joining me on The Library with Tim Einenkel on rapstation.com.
Hey, thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man.